It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
On a Thursday, and great to have you with us. Lots to do over the next 60 minutes, including a conversation with Cameron Maybin, former Major League outfielder, World Series winner. Get some thoughts with him on the World Series. Yeah, the World Series. As many people know who watch this show, if you're a faithful, loyal, 6-day-a-week watcher and you've followed me throughout my career, I don't feel wins and losses for my teams. I grew up watching New York sports. So for me, it was Yankees, Knicks, Giants, Whalers before they left. I don't feel it anymore. There's only one team, though, that I still feel it, and it's the Yankees. It's my blind spot in trying to be objective. It's really my one blind spot, I feel like, in my efforts to be objective when I talk about anything. That was tough to watch last night. This team that fought so hard in Game 4 to get it to a Game 5 with Garrett Cole, to jump out to the early lead the way they did in this game and lead 5-0, only to basically pull one of the all-time, self-destruct buttons that you will ever see in any championship game everywhere or anywhere. That was hard to watch last night, Sam Yarnell. Let me say a few things, and then I'll let you jump in. One, this team, every mistake they made in this series, I don't think I've ever seen a series like this. Every single mistake the Yankees made in this series, like sharks, the Dodgers were all over. Blood in the water, boom, go in and get it. I don't think I've ever seen a series where a team capitalized on every mistake that the other team made. And it felt like that was the case in this series. They should call them the Los Angeles Sharks as opposed to the Dodgers, because that's what they were in this series. Two, the Yankees in this series, if you didn't watch a single thing of Yankee baseball all year this year, you got in 5 games what the Yankees were for 162. You got the good in Game 4. You got the bad with some of the things we saw in this series in terms of base running and all that. And you got the downright ugly, which you saw in Game 5. This is what the Yankees were all year. Aaron Boone's got to go. There's no question about that. I don't know what's going to happen in this offseason. I hope Juan Soto goes in and says, I will take this much money and bye-bye Aaron Boone. Because to me, it feels like that's the only way they're going to get rid of him, because the Yankees have been so devoted to him for whatever reason. Sam, go ahead.
My biggest takeaway from this game is that Aaron Judge is incredibly lucky that the BBWAA votes on the MVP before the postseason starts and not after the World Series. Because quite frankly, over the last month, Aaron Judge should have played his way out of that award. Single-handedly, not to mention, sure, you hit the home run, you put your team up, you finally drive in a run in the World Series. And then what do you do mere innings later? You drop a routine fly ball because you got too far ahead of yourself, because this creature that has been built by Yankee fans infiltrated your mind once again, as it does every postseason. And you thought too little about the play, and you didn't make it. And what happened? You cost your team the inning and then the game. This is an abomination. The New York Yankees, based on the talent on their roster and what happened to the Los Angeles Dodgers in this series, should have won this series 100%. But exactly what you said, Jason, they got out fundamentaled. That you go to a Little League game and you see better fundamentals than you saw last night at Yankee Stadium. Not to mention their Cy Young Award winning.
Not just last night, Sam, all year.
Sure, but we're going to talk about last night because that's when it mattered most. That's when your season was on the line. That's when you not running out of PFP. I'm looking at you, Garrett Cole. We start doing those in February. You don't run out of PFP,
Sam,
and it costs your team, again, the inning and a run.
Sam, that game is still 5. As much as you want to crush Judge for the fly ball to center field, they don't score a single run if Garrett Cole's covering first. Instead of pointing at nobody. I mean, they get out of that inning with no runs being scored. For as bad as the Judge play is, Volpe, the throw, that's it. That's it right there. I could kill Judge. I think ultimately the biggest loser in this series is Aaron Boone, because everything that has festered throughout this entire season was on display here. Over the last 5 games for the Yankees. That to me is the ultimate. Is there needs to be somebody that comes in here that is the antithesis of Aaron Boone and says, look, we're not gonna tolerate these sorts of mistakes. Here's the funny part. The guy who's made the most of those mistakes throughout the entire season was Gleyber Torres. He played the most consistent baseball throughout this series. And I'm looking at you, Juan Soto, because outside of early in this series, he didn't do much in the World Series either, Sam.
You're right.
Got on base. He walked a lot. That was it.
Well, and that's one of the things that makes him one of the greatest hitters of this generation. But on the subject of Boone, you're exactly right. Because here's the thing, Jason. You and I, two guys who sit around and chat about sports all day, we saw these problems brewing with the Yankees in July. In June, we were talking about, the Yankees, they're hitting the cover off the baseball, but man, they can't play a lick of defense. Or man, the Yankees, they're pitching really well right now, and Luis Hill came out of nowhere this season, but man, they're getting thrown out on the bases, left and right. And what happens in the postseason? Those kinds of things, those fundamental errors, they get put on blast, left everywhere. And listen, when it comes to the Juan Soto thing, I'll say this. It became very clear to me watching this series that the Dodgers made a business decision after about game 2 and decided we're just not going to let Juan Soto beat us. If we strike him out, great, but we're not going to have any problem with the walk because, quite frankly, there was no one around him in that lineup that was producing at any clip.
Yankees played about a 90-game stretch this year where they were like 3 or 4 games under 500. And they bookended those with some better baseball. But again, you saw over 5 games, America. If you didn't have to have Yes Network to know that this is what the Yankees were. Now the next question is, what happens to Juan Soto? We'll get to that next. Coming up in 10 minutes, Cameron Maybin, former big league outfielder, World Series champion with the Astros, will hang out with us. Talk about this World Series. Also want to get his thoughts on Juan Soto, which we're going to talk about right here, Sam Yarnell. So the World Series ends, and I think we're, 5 days from Juan Soto being a free agent? And he made it clear after last night's game, Sam, that everybody's in the mix. If you got time and some money, he wants to talk to you. He didn't play it coy. I thought he might be a little coy about it in terms of, at least expressing something towards the Yankees. He didn't express anything that made you believe. Now, look, it doesn't mean he doesn't wind up back in New York with the Yankees. But he's certainly going to listen, and obviously, that's the nature of free agency and Scott Boras and all of that good stuff. But, I don't know. I don't want to read tea leaves too much and try and go too crazy. It's right after he had his heart ripped out in the World Series. And there's this video that was circulating last night of him being the last one to leave the dugout last night. Just sitting there with his helmet. The fans are practically gone. And he's just sitting there with his helmet and his bat. He was just hoping to get one more shot in the 9th inning of this game. And you watch that image and you ask yourself, Sam, is this a guy pondering, hey, this is probably the last time I sit inside the Yankee Stadium home dugout? Is it a guy pondering, I want to be back in this position next year and have a chance to do this again and have a redemption season as a team? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, Sam.
It is, Jason, but I think just probably being the hopeful Nationals fan that I am, or I guess optimistic Nationals fan that I am, and as someone who's kind of paid attention to Juan Soto more than he probably should have and what he says in the media, so much since he left DC in 22, to me, it's always been apparent, and this is not a New York exclusive thing. He did the same thing in San Diego. Juan Soto is very careful in the media about not tying himself to a place. He was very, very careful the entire year playing in the Bronx, which is obviously a massive Dominican population, the Dominican Republic being where Juan Soto hails from. He was very careful about not getting too much into that and not talking too much about the culture of New York. The same thing in San Diego. He never talked too much about how much he was in love with the organization or fell for the organization. And quite frankly, not that he'd have the wherewithal not to as a rookie, but in his first couple of years in Washington, he never said the same thing either. You can grab bits and pieces out of select articles that he would go back and refer to a former team once he was on a new team for sure. But Juan Soto, to me, has always been one of the most calculated guys in terms of what they say to the media and how they carry themselves, just to make sure that, one, he's going to maximize profit when this new contract does come around, but two, he's not going to let anybody create some narrative that he's not creating himself.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think there's a lot to that, and I think that's great insight based on, you know, being somebody that has kept an eye on him. But let's think about it realistically here. Yankees, Mets. I mean, who else is in the mix? You want to say the Dodgers because they're going to go after him? If they do, let's just shut down the game of baseball because they're going to win as many World Series as they want. Who else do you think is realistically in the mix and is going to be willing to spend that kind of money? And is he willing to go? It sounds like he's a guy that likes both coasts. You know, played for Washington, played for the Padres, played for the Yankees, obviously traded to the Yankees. But, you know, would he go to a Midwest team? You know, if the Cubs jumped in, and the Cubs have money. You know, if the Cubs jumped in and said, we want Juan Soto, certainly a team that will contend in the NL Central, which is always a division that's kind of up for grabs every year, despite the fact that it feels like the Brewers win the division every year and then lose in the playoffs. I wonder how many teams, as much as he says, I'm willing to listen to all 30 teams, I'm just wondering how many teams are realistically in contention. Is it a handful?
I'll give you a dark horse. You ready? It's one of the teams that has the most money in baseball that people don't talk about ever having the most money in baseball because they're pretty good at hiding it. The Toronto Blue Jays. And we know they were in on Shohei Ohtani. We know they've got that kind of money to throw around. The Toronto Blue Jays have a gap in their outfield. They could definitely try and use Juan Soto to fill it, especially with a team that, you know, has pieces around it in Vladdy, in Bo Bichette, in George Springer, that you can still build around and still make a contending team out of. Not to mention Kevin Gausman, who's a year removed from being in Cy Young contention. I definitely think the Blue Jays could play a role. And obviously the homer in me is going to say the Washington Nationals are right there. It's the organization he signed with out of the Dominican Republic. Yeah. It's the organization that he grew up with. It's the organization with the fourth richest owners in baseball. It's also, and this is a storyline that people don't talk about enough, the organization that Juan Soto's younger brother is currently a part of. I do think that Juan Soto has made one thing over the course of his career very clear and apparent to us. It's that family means a ton to him. He has always been very, very close to his mother, all the way back to the Players Weekend days where he'd put his mother's last name on the back of his jersey. Juan Soto is very close to his family. Let's not let Elian Soto being a part of the Washington Nationals organization get underplayed in this whole narrative.
I wish. And I know it won't happen because I've got firsthand knowledge that they are a bunch of skinflints that, well, There's a certain team that doesn't like to spend that just isn't spending that much money. I would love to see him wind up in Seattle with the Mariners. I would love to see him wind up in Seattle. You put him in that outfield with Randy Arozarena and Julio Rodriguez. I mean, it'd be the best outfield in baseball. You put those three guys together. But the reality is, I don't think they're going to be willing to spend that kind of money. I would love to see him in Seattle. You know, that town is so hungry. I would love to see the Mariners go out and spend the money to bring a Juan Soto to Seattle. I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately.
They're so burnt from that Robinson Cano contract, they'll never give out huge money again to a guy coming in from not their organization.
Yeah, but Cano was a different story. He was a little older, I think, at the time they got him. You know what I mean? Like, I think... whoever gets Juan Soto is just getting just such... you saw it throughout 162 games in a lot of this postseason. Cameron Maybin joins us on the other side to talk about the World Series, Juan Soto, and more next. Segment 3 on SportsWrap. Let's talk some baseball, as we have in the first couple of segments of the show today, because after this, it's all about free agency. Let's bring in Cameron Maybin, former big league outfielder, World Series champion with the Houston Astros. Not the first time I've spoken to him. First time we've had him on SportsWrap. We were testing out another show that we're hoping to do next season called That Other Baseball Show, and myself and David Ardsma had him on that show. So I'm glad we're able to get Cameron on. First of all, I talked to you about this off the air, but I want to mention it on the air. I am so glad you and your loved ones are okay. I've been keeping tabs, as you know. I was borderline frantic trying to figure out where you were after the hurricane came through there and everything that transpired afterwards. So first of all, before I get into anything baseball related, the most important thing is I'm glad you're okay.
No, appreciate that. And I appreciate it. I saw that tweet after about 3 days of being at SOS, which was insane to actually be disconnected from, civilization for 3 or 4 days. But I did appreciate that. And then once you sent that out, a lot of people, started to check in. A lot of people realized that I was in the middle of it. So I appreciate you kind of just sending out a little awareness. But we are blessed. We are okay. And, just looking to try to help rebuild our city any way we can at this point.
You know what the amazing thing is? My phone goes into SOS for like 35 seconds and I lose my you-know-what. I can't imagine. Like, it makes you think about, okay, what if I looked at and I had nothing? It was like Stone Age. And I can't, I would lose my mind. If I leave my phone at home and go to dinner, I lose my mind. I can't imagine what it's like I'd lose it.
Listen, luckily we're in the mountains. I'm gonna say luckily we are in the mountains, right? So it's always like find your highest peak. And luckily I live in a neighborhood where we have some peaks and valleys. So I was able to get to the top of the neighborhood. And it was like one spot. Literally like stop, hold it right there. You know what I mean? So, and then it was like, and I say right there, like, don't even lower the phone, like hold it right there, type the number and talk like it was insane. So, an experience my kids will never forget, neither will I. But like you said, the most important thing is we're all safe and healthy.
It was like the old days when we had cell phones and we were like, gotta hold it in a certain place. Yeah, certainly. So we get you the day after the Dodgers, the morning after the Dodgers win the World Series. And look, I said it at the top of the show. The fact of the matter is, if you didn't watch the Yankees for 162 games this year and you just watched the 5 games of this series, you actually got the entire story on what the Yankees were. You got it in Game 4 with the best of them. You got it in, Game 1, 1, 2, and 3. And then in 5 with the sloppiness, the lack of accountability, which I think goes back to Aaron Boone. You got a bit of everything. And I feel like if you didn't watch the Yankees all year, this is sort of what the Yankees were, weren't they?
Yeah, I followed them throughout the season, and this was the tale of the Yankees. Some good, some bad, and some ugly. And unfortunately, the ugly reared its head at a time that you don't need it to rear its head, right? When there's essentially no tomorrow. And, as I watch this series, one thing I continue to just acknowledge is, it was hard to watch the amount of mistakes that the Yankees made. Well, at the same time, I was so impressed with just how fundamentally sound the Dodgers were from an executional standpoint, from a managerial standpoint, from a game planning standpoint. This is a series where going into it, I really thought that the Yankees had the advantage when you talk about having 4 guys in a starting rotation, which will allow you to have a somewhat rested bullpen, but the ability to just put together quality at-bats. I mean, have a game plan, understanding that it's not bigger than one guy, right? You saw a lot of at-bats from the Dodgers that said, we're just trying to win this game, right? Whatever it takes to win, not, hey, I want to be the hero. And I think you saw some hero ball starting to come and play when you watch the Yankees. And that goes back to that accountability, right? Aaron Boone, who is, one of my most favorite people in the world, I think at times, he does such a great job of having his players back. But I think at some point, right, the accountability has to go. We have to be better, right? If we want to win a World Series, you get to where you want to get to, but to achieve the ultimate goal, essentially, you almost have to play perfect baseball, especially against the Dodgers team. So it was hard to watch all the mistakes and how they lost, right? But you have to give Dodgers so much credit for taking advantage of so many fundamental mistakes.
You ever seen anything like that 5th inning, Cameron?
I mean, literally, I was pulling my hair out, and at one point I'm going, you deserve to lose when you play like this against a team like the Dodgers. Really anybody, but you deserve to lose when Garrett Cole goes out and he gives you everything you're asking for, right? We don't need to see that Garrett.
Segment 3 on SportsWrap. Let's talk some baseball, as we have in the first couple of segments of the show today, because after this, it's all about free agency. Let's bring in Cameron Maybin, former big league outfielder, World Series champion with the Houston Astros. Not the first time I've spoken to him. First time we've had him on SportsWrap. We were testing out another show that we're hoping to do next season called That Other Baseball Show, and myself and David Ardsma had him on that show. So I'm glad we're able to get Cameron on. First of all, I talked to you about this off the air, but I want to mention it on the air. I am so glad you and your loved ones are okay. I've been keeping tabs, as you know. I was borderline frantic trying to figure out where you were after the hurricane came through there and everything that transpired afterwards. So first of all, before I get into anything baseball related, the most important thing is I'm glad you're okay.
No, appreciate that. And I appreciate it. I saw that tweet after about 3 days of being at SOS, which was insane to actually be disconnected from, civilization for 3 or 4 days. But I did appreciate that. And then once you sent that out, a lot of people, started to check in. A lot of people realized that I was in the middle of it. So I appreciate you kind of just sending out a little awareness, but we are blessed. We are okay. And, just looking to try to help rebuild our city any way we can at this point.
You know what the amazing thing is? My phone goes into SOS for like 35 seconds and I lose my you-know-what. I can't imagine, it makes you think about, okay, what if I looked at, and I had nothing. It was like Stone Age. And I can't, I would lose my mind. If I leave my phone at home and go to dinner, I lose my mind. I can't imagine what it's like I'd lose it.
Listen, luckily we're in the mountains. I'm gonna say luckily we are in the mountains, right? So it's always like find your highest peak. And luckily I live in a neighborhood where we have some peaks and valleys. So I was able to get to the top of the neighborhood. And it was like one spot. I mean, literally stop, hold it right there. You know what I mean? So, and then it was and I say right there, don't even lower the phone, hold it right there, type the number and talk like it was insane. So, an experience my kids will never forget, neither will I. But like you said, the most important thing is we're all safe and healthy.
It was like the old days when we had cell phones and we were gotta hold it in a certain place. Yeah, certainly. So we get you the day after the Dodgers, the morning after the Dodgers win the World Series. And look, I said it at the top of the show. The fact of the matter is, if you didn't watch the Yankees for 162 games this year and you just watched the 5 games of this series, you actually got the entire story on what the Yankees were. You got it in Game 4 with the best of them. You got it in, Game 1, 1, 2, and 3. And then in 5 with the sloppiness, the lack of accountability, which I think goes back to Aaron Boone. You got a bit of everything, and I feel like if you didn't watch the Yankees all year, this is sort of what the Yankees were, weren't they?
Yeah, I followed them throughout the season, and this was the tale of the Yankees. Some good, some bad, and some ugly. And unfortunately, the ugly reared its head at a time that you don't need it to rear its head, right? When there's essentially no tomorrow. And, as I watch the series, one thing I continue to just acknowledge is, it was hard to watch the amount of mistakes that the Yankees made. Well, at the same time, I was so impressed with just how fundamentally sound the Dodgers were from an executional standpoint, from a managerial standpoint, from a game planning standpoint. This was a series where going into it, I really thought that the Yankees had the advantage when you talk about having 4 guys in your starting rotation, which will allow you to have a somewhat rested bullpen, but the ability to just put together quality at-bats. I mean, have a game plan, understanding that it's not bigger than one guy, right? You saw a lot of at-bats from the Dodgers that said, we're just trying to win this game, right? Whatever it takes to win, not, hey, I want to be the hero. And I think you saw some hero ball starting to come and play when you watch the Yankees. And that goes back to that accountability, right? Aaron Boone, who is, one of my most favorite people in the world, I think at times, he does such a great job of having his players back. But I think at some point, right, the accountability has to go. We have to be better, right? If we want to win a World Series, you get to where you want to get to, but to achieve the ultimate goal, essentially, you almost have to play perfect baseball, especially against the Dodgers team. So it was hard to watch all the mistakes and how they lost, right? But you have to give Dodgers so much credit for taking advantage of so many fundamental mistakes.
You ever seen anything like that 5th inning, Cameron?
Oh, I mean, literally, I was pulling my hair out, and at one point I'm going, you deserve to lose when you play like this against a team like the Dodgers. Really anybody, but you deserve to lose when Garrett Cole goes out and he gives you everything you're asking for, right? We don't need to see that Garrett Cole who's unsure of himself or who might have hit a wall. We need to see that Garrett Cole that's going to go out and compete, that's going to fight through some adversity. And he did just that, right? He went out there and literally emptied the tank, so to speak, right? Got as much as he could out of himself. And he was gassed, he was fried, but for that inning to happen, to have a 5-run lead, and then you just see the wheels start to fall off, it was hard to watch. And then I'm a big body language guy. You could see the body language just start to spiral. And then Aaron Judge, I mean, talk about a series for him of, a lot of downs, and it seems like as soon as he's coming out of it, that error came back to be a huge mistake in that inning, as well as Garrett not getting over the cover first base. I know a lot of people, thank you, Jason. A lot of people got Rizzo online, but I'm going, that was not, to me, I watched play back 50 times. 50 times I've replayed that play, and Anthony Rizzo did nothing wrong.
Yep.
The ball hit off the end of the bat. It has a funky carom. He can't come bat out of the hell trying to charge that ball. He has to literally play the hop, read it, and Garrett started over to first base. Keep going. Like, that's a play where Garrett Cole, we talk about elementary, right? I coach a 16U travel ball team. These are things that at the 16U level, the 15U, the 14U, whatever it is, PFP. You got, like, the World Series, like, we cannot make that mistake. We cannot have that happen. But it was just, like you said, it was the tale of the Yankees, what we've seen all year long. And unfortunately, it reared its ugly head at the wrong time. Yeah,
it certainly did. And Freddie Freeman, rightfully your World Series MVP. I only got 30 seconds left in this segment. A thought on what Freddie did in this series, especially considering the injury to the ankle.
Yeah, incredible. His ability, and gives the training staff a ton of credit, their ability to get him ready to go, ready to play. And then what he went through as a father, as a husband, a man, as a teammate. I get goosebumps right now thinking about it. One of my favorite teammates in this world, an emotional guy, a guy that makes himself extremely vulnerable in the world of trying to be this perfect athlete and trying to be like nothing's, everything's okay with me. Freddie, he literally leaves it out there for you. He allows himself to be vulnerable, allows the fans to just fall in love with him even more. So, it couldn't have happened to a better person.
He's
100%.
He's impossible not to root for. More with Cameron Maybin. Don't go anywhere. We keep the conversation moving, and we're going to hang on to Cameron Maybin for one more segment, former big league outfielder. MLB analyst, World Series champion with the Astros. What's the morning after like? After winning a World Series, Cameron? Like what? I mean, does it almost feel like a dream at some point? Like you wake up the next morning, you're like, wow, did that really happen?
It is surreal, right? My son, funny you asked that. My son asked me this morning, what is that like, Dad? My son was a little fella when we won it with the Astros, but I told him it's incredible. It's almost hard to explain, that feeling when you wake up and we talk about being that little kid on Christmas when you remember back to remembering your first Christmas, right? And getting that gift that you wanted, that you begged for, and it was there, and nothing else mattered under the tree, right? It was like, that's the gift. And your parents are like, hey, Jason, you have a few more, and you're like, but this is the one I wanted, right? Like, that's what it's like. It's like waking up, winning the lottery, getting that prize, that present that you dreamt about your entire life. And it's almost hard to explain. And I think, I think about Dave Roberts when he woke up this morning and how proud of himself he should be, right? Not only what this team was able to do, but what he was able to do as a manager. I started to think, we talk about awards, right? And I know they got the highest achievement, but when you go back and look at the 30-plus pitchers they went through, the amount of injuries they went through, the revolving door, losing Jason Hayward, who was an instrumental piece as far as a character-building piece in the clubhouse. Dave Roberts, I think, did maybe his best managerial job of his career, and then you watch him just continue to put it on display during the World Series. So that's a great moment. You wake up, you want to make sure it's real, right? I mean, let me touch myself. Let me make sure this is the real thing, because we just did something that is so hard to achieve, and it's so much fun to watch. I woke up with a smile on my face thinking about the heartbreak, but also the amount of elation on the other end.
Yeah, because as much as people are going to say, and rightly so, that they spent a ton of money, and this should have been the end result, there are no straight lines. And for this Dodgers team, it really was not a straight line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kershaw hurt, Glass now hurt. I mean, countless amount of injuries. I'm sure. I mean, bullpen guys banged up. Mookie Betts going down, trying to play shortstop. I mean, they went through some real. I mean, Max Muncy banged up. This was a lineup, a team who it almost seemed like, throughout the season, they were never healthy as a whole, right? So to develop that type of chemistry, that type of character, to build that type of callus, when you talk about what they, did in the offseason, I mean, you look back at it, and I say this one thing that goes unnoticed, and I was really big on this move, the Teoscar Hernandez move, right? I was really big on that move, not because of the player, not what he did at the end of the year in 2023, but what people don't know is I've been in the clubhouse with that guy, and I continue to say there's no stat for character, right? Those are the guys that you need in the clubhouse when you have injuries like you have, when you have guys go down like they went down. You need to have a guy that says, it's okay, guys, get on my back, I got you, but also keep guys loose. You heard Miggy Rojas talk about the MVP of the team this year. They asked Miguel Rojas, who's the MVP of the team? And clearly Shohei Ohtani had a out-of-world year. He goes, Teoscar Hernandez kept this team together. He was the heart. He was the soul. He was the piece to that puzzle that kept everybody intact. And I think that goes unseen.
Yeah, and Cameron, the Mariners missed him a lot. That was a huge loss that they just let him walk out the door. Let's talk about Juan Soto here in the last couple of minutes. He kept it pretty close to the chest last night, saying, hey, all 30 teams, here I am. Realistically, there's probably only about 5 or 6 that could even afford him. Where do you think Juan Soto winds up in 2025?
Okay, here's my thing. Money talks. Money talks loud. And when you look at these contracts, when you look at Shohei's contract, when you look at Aaron Judge's contract, when you look at the age of Juan Soto, he's going to get paid a lot of bread, a lot of money, a lot of dough. Now, what would have been sweet, in the perfect world, is the Yankees would have won a World Series. Brian Cashman could have said, hey, thanks, Juan. Go enjoy free agency, and they move on, and the Yankees can hang their hat on that World Series for the next few years and maybe the next few decades, to be honest. But with them not winning, to me, I continue to stand on this. And because I went through it through experience, the best version of Juan Soto, the best version of Juan Soto that we will get will be in the Yankees pinstripes. There's an investment. There's expectation. There's a nostalgia about waking up in the morning before you even leave the house knowing, okay, I get to put pinstripes on and I better be ready to go today. And I think he's the type of player where, opposed to San Diego, where it's so lax, it's so comfortable. Some days you wake up and you're like, I would much rather just stay at home today. It's 76, it's nice, it's sunny. Like it's not the same passion, you know, and we're human, right? Athletes are human. And you have those human thoughts where you go, man, it'd be nice to just go to the beach, to get on the longboard, right? Take a bike ride. Where in New York, you know, when you wake up, I have to be locked in, because if they look at me and they see that I'm not there, if I'm in La La Land, somebody's going to let me know, right? There's a level of investment that I think the Yankees fans hold, a level of accountability that he needs. Now, I don't know. Money talks. We know Steve Cohen has a lot of bread, right? Again, they got as close as you could ask them to get. That would make Juan Soto go, all right, well, at the end of the day, they got a good foundation. Mendy's a guy who clearly guys enjoy showing up to the ballpark playing for. I think a player manager goes a long way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
For me right now, it's the two biggest fan bases. And hell, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't put anything past the Dodgers. You never know.
Nah.
You never know. You never know.
Certainly.
I know a lot of people talk about them being far away from the Dominican Republic. But at the end of the day, you know, you can get a PJ and you can get anywhere you want to when you're going to make the type of money that Juan Soto's going to make.
That's very true. Cameron Maybin, look, I appreciate it. All the best to you and your family down there in North Carolina and that whole area as you guys continue to recover. Let's have you on in the offseason when we get into free agency and have plenty to talk about there. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. My brain is already going. I'm already thinking about what pieces fit where. So just let me know when you're ready and we'll do it.
I love it. Cameron Maybin, always appreciate your time. We're coming back with more Sports Wrap. Okay. Segment 5 on the show. Normally something to consider. Today, since we kept Cameron Maybin for an extra segment, it is Contender Pretender, Week 9 in the NFL. Week 9 will get started tonight. We'll talk about that coming up in Odds and Ends. Texans and Jets. Our buddy Patrick McEnroe, who guest co-hosted on the show, or hung out with us, guest contributor for the show yesterday. Patrick McEnroe did the whole show. He got through it, Sam. He did all 6 segments yesterday, which is not easy, as you know. You know, this is not an easy thing to do. He did all 6 segments yesterday, including an interview with Kurt Helin and David Ardsma. So he was on it. But he's going to Texans Jets tonight. And he asked for our thoughts and prayers to get through that experience. All right, Week 9 in the NFL. Good luck, Patrick. We're wishing you the best. Week 9 in the NFL, Sam Yarnell. Contender, Pretender. What do you got for us?
All right, Jason, we'll start with my contenders, and I'll be quick this week, I promise. My first contender is the Denver Broncos. They're playoff contenders, folks. Bo Nix is simply playing well enough. Sean Payton knows that his reputation is on the line. The Denver Broncos are playoff contenders. My next contender, the Arizona Cardinals. Listen, the Arizona Cardinals are contenders to win that division in the NFC West, and that may simply be because everyone else is bad and the Niners are really hurt. But at the end of the day, the Cardinals have positioned themselves, as long as Kyler Murray doesn't play too much Call of Duty, in a place to win that division in terms of the NFC West. My final contenders, Jason was right. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are contenders to win the NFC North Division. Now, this is only because the Ravens lose really weird games, and they could lose another really weird game as the season goes on, right? Like, we're at a point where I trust them against good teams, but I won't trust them against bad teams. Weird thing to say about the Baltimore Ravens. But credit Mike Tomlin. I mean, that decision that he made to go to Russell Wilson in that spot it paid off, and it clearly was the right decision. And I'll be the first one to say that I thought it wasn't, and he was right. Credit to Mike Tomlin. That's why he's on NFL sidelines, and I'm sitting in this chair. The Pittsburgh Steelers, regardless, contenders to win the NFC North this season. All right, my pretenders. First of all, the Seattle Seahawks. My goodness, that team is horrible. They cannot do anything, and Geno Smith finally looks like the Geno Smith that the Jets drafted all those years ago. Kenneth Walker with a, I believe, career low in rushing yards, at least yards per attempt, in that last game against Buffalo. Buffalo holding a team to only 31 rushing yards in a game. Truly, truly incredible stuff. An incredible lack of productivity at home from the Seattle Seahawks has landed them on my contenders list. Along with the Indianapolis Colts, there's turmoil in that building right now. They don't know where they're going. They don't know their identity. This is a team that used a first-round top 5 pick on a quarterback as early as last year, or as recently as last year, I should say, and they're already making him ride pine. I don't get it. The Indianapolis Colts are pretenders to me. And lastly, Jason, I hate to say it, I think the Minnesota Vikings are pretenders. I really do. Their schedule does not look good the rest of the way. Sam Darnold has shown flashes of Sam Darnold of old recently, and quarterbacks are seeming to figure out the Brian Flores defense. I'm not completely committed to it, but I'm worried the Vikings are pretenders.
I actually, we've got a couple that we agree on this week for contender pretender. So why don't I get started? My contenders and pretenders, Sam Yarnell. Let's start with contenders. And yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers have to be considered a Super Bowl contender. I'm telling you, somebody's going to have to run the gauntlet through the AFC to get to the Super Bowl. It could be the Steelers. It could be the Chiefs. It obviously could be the Ravens, although I almost put them in as a pretender this week, and I will explain why a little later. But to me, the Pittsburgh Steelers, with that defense, it is an all-world defense. It is a championship caliber defense. You have to put the Pittsburgh Steelers as a Super Bowl contender. The Detroit Lions, we just continue to go ho-hum. Oh, here's the Lions. 6-1. Best record in football after you talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. And we keep taking this team for granted. And I don't know what. Maybe it's because they're the Lions. It could be. But Detroit, to me, has to be considered a Super Bowl contender at this point, especially when you talk about an NFC that, while it has some teams with good records, doesn't feel as strong as a conference as the AFC does, if that makes any sense. My third contender will go with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I have to say this, because we leave them out whenever we talk about contender, pretender, and we just, again, take them for granted. But teams don't do what they've done. Win a Super Bowl and then go undefeated this long. I mean, they are playing fantastic all-around football. The defensive side of the ball. You saw the offense starting to catch up a little bit this week to what the defense has been doing. I'm starting to think Kansas City might be on the verge of something very, very special in a third straight Super Bowl. Real quick on pretenders. The Washington Commanders to win a Super Bowl. I'm just talking about Super Bowl pretenders. The Commanders are good. I love the progress they're making. But something I said earlier this week on the show, I want to see them unleash Jaden Daniels. If they do that, then this tag of pretender could become contender. I want to see them do that. And if you're the Commanders, man, at this point, what do you have to lose? You know, set the guy loose. Let's see what he can do. The Vikings, who you mentioned, pretenders, for the reasons that you discussed and a whole bunch more. And whoever wins the NFC South, pretenders. You might make the playoffs. Guarantee you will if you win the division. But you're not winning a Super Bowl. My contenders and pretenders. Odds and Ends wraps up the show. We've got some fun stuff for you. Don't go anywhere. It's next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for Thursday. We got a show for you tomorrow. Tino Patino will be here because it's a NASCAR Friday. Our friend Robert Littall from Black Sports Online will talk about some of the top stories of the week. And how about this one? Chuck Todd, the former moderator of Meet the Press, he will be on the show tomorrow. He's a huge sports fan. So we'll do a little sports and we'll have them handicap the presidential election a little bit. So I'm looking forward to that. Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. Go and check it out. All your favorite podcasting platforms have it. Without any further delay, Sam Yarnell, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. A 5-leg parlay was published last night on Bleacher Report. This 5-leg parlay has 5 championship picks. UConn to win the Final Four, which they did. Or to win the NCAA championship, which they did at plus 500. The Celtics to win an NBA title at plus 210. The Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup at plus 700. The Dodgers to win the World Series at plus 320. Bang, as Mike Breen would say. There's only one problem. This is a 5-leg parlay. And the 5th leg of that parlay is the Jets to win the Super Bowl. Anybody say cash out? So it's a $50 bet. If the Jets win the Super Bowl, it would be a $1 million payout, Sam Yarnell. But the payout being offered is $4,721. What do you do?
Well, first of all, if I'm someone betting more than $50 on what we in the industry call a lottery ticket, a 5-leg championship parlay, the first thing I do is call the number because my goodness, wow. And then second of all,
that's great.
If I had a green button that I could push to make some quick math here, $4,600 on, and it didn't tie me to the Jets winning the Super Bowl, I'd push that button without hesitation, without question. I would not like to ride a 2-6 team all the way to $1 million.
Yes,
give me the $4.5 grand, and I'll pay rent for the next couple months.
This for a game show, the audience would be chanting, "Push the button, push the button." I think that is a must. All right, odds and ends. The end for Alex Kirilloff. We barely knew you. What's he, 26 years old, 25 years old? Retiring. Why is he retiring, Sam?
It's just injuries. He spent the majority of this season on the IL, and he's never played more than 90 games in a season. It's a shame for a guy who was drafted out of high school 9 years ago in the first round. Like, there was a lot of potential with Alex Kirilloff, and just a career ravaged by injuries. You hate to see it.
Also retiring, Daniel Hudson after winning a World Series, and I've put him just for you because I know this is the way you want to remember him. Like, Leonardo DiCaprio at the end of Titanic, you want to remember him looking young like Leonardo DiCaprio, How about Daniel Hudson? I put him in a Nationals jersey for you.
5 years to the day after he won the World Series for the Nationals, he wins the World Series for the Dodgers, and then announces his retirement. Truly poetic. It's funny, I was just talking with somebody the other day, and to this day, that day that the Nationals won Game 7 and Daniel Hudson closed out that game, still the single greatest day in my life. So, Daniel Hudson, awesome guy, really great guy off the field. Happy for him. Happy that he got to go out on top. That's exactly what he wanted to do.
All right, I got 35 seconds. What do you got for Thursday Night Football? Jets minus 2.5 somehow at home against the Texans. I hear Admiral Akbar going, "It's a trap." What do you do?
It's a trap I'm fully falling into. Give me the Texans. Give me Rodgers to throw a pick.
All right, that's it? Rodgers to throw a pick? That's where we're going?
I'm not touching the total. You trust either of these offenses without Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins? Come on.
I certainly do not trust either of these offenses. All right, Sam, that takes us to the end of the show, and I want to give the Dodgers the last word with their World Series win, courtesy of Nike. Nobody does it better than Nike. This is what you got last night after the World Series concluded. Nike's ad for the Dodgers. This is fantastic. Watch.
Rolling down Imperial Highway, big nasty red at my side, Santa Ana winds blowing hot from the north. I love LA. We love it. I love LA. We love it. We love it.
The storybook season. I mean, what is there left to say? It's going to put a wrap on us for this Thursday edition of the program. Thank you to our guests, Cameron Maybin, for dropping by. He was the only guest today, as a matter of fact. Thank you to you, Sam Yarnell, as well. Again on Friday, NASCAR Friday, Tino Patino will be here. Great show planned for you. Chuck Todd of NBC, their fantastic political analyst, huge sports fan as well. We'll see you then. Have a wonderful Thursday. We'll see you back here on Friday. Thursday Night Football recap and more.